Molly stood alone at the edge of the town, gazing at the quiet streets of Dedham. Winter had painted the town in shades of white and gray, a stark contrast to the vibrant colors of autumn that she had grown accustomed to. The once bustling streets were now shrouded in silence, disturbed only by the occasional gust of wind that howled through the narrow lanes and rattled the window panes of the old houses. She pulled her coat tighter around her as a gust of frosty wind blew past, carrying with it an ominous whisper. Molly had heard that whisper before, in the hushed voices of the spectral sisters. The banished, ancient rivals to the Sisters of the Fang were coming. The mere thought sent a shiver down her spine, colder than any winter breeze. Molly had been the new girl in Dedham only a few months ago, but so much had changed since then. She had discovered her lineage, embraced her destiny, and had even faced the shadows of her past. She had found a new home, a new family, and a new purpose. But now she faced a new challenge. A threat that was as old as the Sisters of the Fang themselves. This was an enemy unseen but not unfelt. The spectral sisters had felt it. The whispers of the wind carried its name. And now, Molly felt it too. A lurking presence at the edge of her senses, a shadow that was growing longer with each passing day. With each whisper, the threat was becoming real. It was no longer a story of the past, but a danger of the present. An enemy that had returned after centuries of banishment, seeking vengeance. The banished were coming, and Molly, the last of the Sisters of the Fang, knew that she had to be ready. Despite the fear that gnawed at her heart, Molly stood firm. She could see her breath fogging up in the cold air, each exhale a reminder of the living legacy she carried. The last of the Sisters of the Fang was not going to cower. She was not just the new girl anymore. She was the protector of Dedham, the upholder of a legacy that had lasted for centuries. As she stared at the desolate winter landscape, a sense of resolve filled her. She knew that the coming days were going to be challenging. She knew that the banished were a formidable enemy. But she also knew that she wasn't alone. She had the spectral sisters, she had the teachings of her ancestors, and she had the strength that came from accepting her destiny. With a final look at the town she had grown to love, Molly turned around and headed back home. The threat was unseen, but the resolve was clear. The banished were coming, and the last of the Sisters of the Fang was ready. Winter had arrived in Dedham, but it had brought more than just frosty mornings and chilly nights. It had brought an unseen threat, a lurking shadow, and an impending battle. But it had also brought a newfound resolve in a girl who was ready to face it all. The threat was real, the danger imminent. But so was the courage of Molly, the last of the Sisters of the Fang, and she was ready. Each night, as the winter chill seeped into the corners of the ancient haunted house, Molly found herself in the spectral sisters' ethereal company. The sisters were not just her guides and mentors, but also her connection to the past. They were her only link to the lineage she belonged to, the only source of tales that belonged to a time she had never lived. It was through their stories that she came to know about the banished, about the shadows that once haunted the town of Dedham. According to the spectral sisters, the banished were once part of the Sisters of the Fang. They were a group who sought to exploit their powers for personal gain, their hearts corrupted by greed and hunger for supremacy. They had turned against their own, their ambitions threatening to bring doom upon the town. However, the Sisters of the Fang, including Molly's ancestors, had stood against them, fighting to protect the town. After a long and grueling battle, the banished had been driven away, condemned to live as outcasts, away from the town they once called home. As the spectral sisters recited tales of bravery, sacrifice, and betrayal, Molly found herself lost in the echoes of the past. Her mind was filled with images of fierce battles, of courageous sisters standing against treacherous foes, of her town caught in the crossfire of power and ambition. It was a history she had never known, a legacy she had never asked for, but one that she had come to inherit. With each tale, Molly realized the weight of the threat she was about to face. The banished were not just any enemies. They were the shadows of her past, the remnants of a dark history, and a testament to the consequences of power uncontrolled. Their return wasn't just a threat to her or the spectral sisters, but to the entire town of Dedham. Despite the fear that the tales evoked, Molly also felt a growing sense of determination. She could see why her ancestors had fought against the banished, why they had chosen to protect the town even at the cost of their own peace. She could feel their courage, their resolve, their willingness to fight against their own for the sake of others. This was her lineage, her legacy. She was a sister of the Fang, a protector of Dedham, and she wouldn't let her town fall to the banished. Each tale of the past, each shadow of history only strengthened her resolve. The stories of the spectral sisters became her beacon in the dark, her guide through the shadows of the past. The threat was real and the enemy formidable. But the lessons of the past were not lost on Molly. The Sisters of the Fang had stood against the banished before, and they would do so again. And this time, Molly would be leading the stand. The banished may have been shadows of the past, but Molly was the light of the present, ready to face them head-on. As the days turned into weeks, Molly's life took on a rhythm dictated by her new destiny. Each day was filled with training, with each passing hour marked by the learning of ancient spells, defensive strategies, and the ways of harnessing her powers. The Spectral Sisters, despite their ethereal form, were stern teachers, pushing Molly to her limits, testing her endurance, and training her to control her abilities. The once quiet and cozy haunted house now echoed with the recitation of ancient spells, the rustling of old parchments, and the occasional sounds of magical outbursts. It had become a sanctuary of learning, a place where history met the present, and where Molly embraced her legacy. It was here that Molly practiced summoning her energy, focusing her mind, and commanding the elements around her. It was a grueling process, but with each day she could feel herself growing stronger, her control over her abilities becoming more refined. But the preparation was not just about Molly. Lily, the young girl she had saved from the shadows, was also a part of it. Under Molly's guidance, Lily was learning about the supernatural world, about the Sisters of the Fang and the banished. Molly taught her the basics of self-defense, the importance of being alert, and the way to use her instincts. Lily's progress was slow, but she was a keen learner, her eagerness shining in her bright eyes. For Lily, Molly was not just a mentor but also a protector, a friend, and a beacon of hope. While Molly prepared for the threat of the banished, the town of Dedham continued its winter routines, oblivious to the looming danger. Molly saw it in the hunched figures braving the cold winds, in the plumes of smoke rising from the chimneys, and in the snow-covered rooftops. They were going about their lives, unaware of the shadows closing in on them. But Molly was not about to let them face the danger unprepared. She knew that she couldn't do this alone. She needed allies. She needed the town. Even if they didn't have the powers of the Sisters of the Fang, their will to protect their home would be a force to reckon with. As she trained with the Spectral Sisters, she also started planning ways to bring the town's people into her fight. It was a risk, revealing the truth to them. But it was a risk she was willing to take. The town of Dedham was her home now, and she would do everything in her power to protect it. Each passing day, each training session, each lesson learned was a step closer to facing the banished. The preparations were intense, the pressure immense, and the stakes high. But Molly was not one to back down. She was the last of the Sisters of the Fang, the protector of Dedham, and she was ready to face whatever threat that came her way. The banished were coming, and Molly was preparing to meet them head-on. And this time, she wouldn't be alone. She had the Spectral Sisters, she had Lily, and soon she would have the town of Dedham standing by her side. The days of winter were growing shorter, the nights colder, and the whispers of the banished louder. Molly knew that the confrontation was inevitable, but she hadn't expected it to be so soon. It happened on a night when the moon was hidden behind a veil of clouds, and the wind whistled ominously through the skeletal trees. It was a night that would be forever etched in Molly's memory, for it was the night when she came face to face with the banished for the first time. Molly had been walking Lily back home from a training session when she felt it. A sudden drop in temperature, a sense of being watched, and a gnawing dread that made her stomach clench. She instinctively wrapped an arm around Lily, her eyes darting around the darkened streets. The lanterns that lit the streets of Dedham flickered ominously, casting dancing shadows that seemed to come alive. Then they appeared, figures emerging from the shadows, their forms distorted and hazy. There were 4 of them, their eyes gleaming in the dark, their smiles revealing sharp, pointed fangs. The banished had arrived in Dedham. Their presence was a chilling reminder of the threat that Molly had been preparing for. The sight of them, real and threatening, made her heart pound in her chest, but she wasn't about to let her fear show. She stood tall, her grip on Lily tightening. The confrontation was brief but intense. The Banished did not attack, but their message was clear. They were in datum, and they were not afraid to show it. Their smiles were a taunting challenge, a silent declaration of the war that was about to begin. Molly faced them with all the courage she could muster, her eyes meeting theirs with determined defiance. It was a standoff that lasted for a few tense moments before the Banished faded back into the shadows, leaving behind a chilling silence. The encounter was over, but its implications were far from it. The Banished had shown themselves, marking the beginning of the impending battle. The walk back home was a silent one, the memory of the encounter weighing heavy on their hearts. But it was also a walk of resolve, a promise of resistance. They had seen the enemy, and now they knew what they were up against. The rest of the night was spent in the haunted house, where Molly shared her encounter with the spectral sisters. Their ethereal faces reflected the severity of the situation, their whispered advice a guiding light in the encroaching darkness. The first encounter had occurred, the threat had shown its face, and now it was time to gather the strength to face it. The battle had begun, and Molly was ready to fight it till the end. The confrontation with the Banished served as a brutal wake-up call for Molly. It was no longer a distant threat, but a tangible enemy, one that lurked in the very shadows of Dedham. The event marked a turning point in Molly's life, where preparation gave way to action and fear became a companion of courage. Molly began to patrol the town at night, using the knowledge imparted by the spectral sisters to sense the presence of the Banished. The empty, snow-dusted streets of Dedham became her battleground, every dark corner a potential hideout for the enemy. She encountered the Banished on multiple occasions, their violent clashes breaking the silence of the night. Each battle was a test of her resolve and strength, each victory a step closer to protecting her town. Yet, the Banished seemed to grow in number with each passing day, their persistence a chilling reminder of the battle's intensity. It wasn't just the physical battles that tested Molly. The emotional toll was equally challenging. She had to balance the secrecy of her identity with her burgeoning friendship with the townsfolk, hide her nightly encounters from Lily, and bear the heavy burden of her legacy. Yet, amid the darkness, moments of hope shone through. The spectral sisters stood with Molly, aiding her in her battles, providing her with wisdom and healing her wounds. Lily, despite being kept in the dark about the ongoing battles, provided Molly with emotional support, their bond growing stronger each day. Meanwhile, Molly had also begun her efforts to rally the townsfolk. She started subtly, dropping hints about the unseen threats and sharing tales of the Sisters of the Fang. She started training a few willing volunteers, teaching them the basics of defense and stealth, preparing them for the battle they were yet to fully understand. Every night was a blend of fear and determination, every day a preparation for the night to come. There were moments of doubt and despair, moments when the task ahead seemed insurmountable. But every time Molly faltered, she remembered her promise to protect Dedham, to honor her lineage, and to stand against the Banished. The battle had begun, and it was far from over. The Banished were relentless, and the stakes were getting higher with each passing day. But Molly was not alone. She had the spectral sisters by her side, Lily's unwavering faith, and a growing group of townsfolk who were slowly beginning to join her cause. With each rising moon, the battle against the Banished continued. With every setting sun, the resolve to protect Dedham strengthened. The town of Dedham might have been on the brink of a dark era, but it was not without its protectors. The Banished might have begun their reign of terror, but the Sisters of the Fang were ready to stand against them. The battle had begun, and it would be fought till the end. The news of the Banished and their threat to Dedham spread through the town like wildfire. What had once been whispers of the supernatural and the strange had now become open conversations, theories, and speculations. The revelation had not been easy. Disbelief, denial, and fear had initially taken hold. But as the reality sunk in, the townsfolk began to understand the severity of their situation. Molly stood at the heart of it all. She became the beacon of hope for the scared townspeople, her unwavering courage and determination inspiring them. Even in the face of fear, the townsfolk rallied behind Molly, their trust in her growing with each passing day. The girl who had once been a newcomer was now their protector, the last of the Sisters of the Fang. The haunted house, once a source of trepidation and urban legends, became a hub of activity. It was here that Molly organized training sessions, teaching willing townsfolk the basics of self-defense. the ways to detect the presence of the banished, and strategies to counter their attacks. During these sessions, the spectral sisters became more visible, their spectral forms a surreal sight for the townsfolk. Yet their guidance, wisdom, and patient teaching eased the apprehensions of the townsfolk, their spectral form becoming a symbol of hope rather than fear. Each day, the town of Dedham grew stronger, their unity their greatest weapon against the banished. From the young to the old, from the weak to the strong, everyone contributed in their own way. The elderly shared their wisdom and old tales of the Sisters of the Fang. The adults trained, strategized, and patrolled. The children, filled with bravery and innocence, aided in small tasks, their youthful spirit a source of strength for everyone. Lily, too, stood strong with Molly, her fear giving way to determination. She became a source of comfort for the younger children, her own experience with the supernatural allowing her to soothe their fears. And as the town stood united, they faced the banished together. Their nights were marked with battles against the invaders, their unity and courage proving a formidable challenge for the banished. The streets of Dedham became a battlefield, every alleyway a tactical vantage point, every house a sanctuary. Through it all, Molly stood at the forefront, leading the town with her power and bravery. She was their beacon in the darkest nights, the embodiment of Dedham's resilience. Her journey from a newcomer to the town's protector was a testament to her strength and the power of unity. As they stood against the banished, Dedham proved that they were not just a town but a community, a united front. They were ready to face whatever came their way. They were prepared to protect their home, their loved ones, and their way of life. The town's stand was not just a physical battle, but a fight for their spirit, their unity, and their courage. And in that fight, they were unyielding. The weeks passed in a blur of preparation and battle, the town of Dedham living in a state of heightened vigilance and unity. Every day brought them closer to the inevitable, the final showdown with the banished. And when the night of reckoning finally arrived, it was not with a warning, but with the howling of the winter wind and a suffocating sense of dread. The day had been eerily quiet, the usually bustling town eerily silent as a sense of foreboding hung in the air. The sun set early, casting long shadows over the deserted streets. Molly, standing in front of the haunted house, could feel it. The anticipation, the fear, and the resolve. Tonight was the night. As the darkness settled in, the spectral sisters appeared, their ethereal forms shimmering under the faint glow of the moon. One by one, the townsfolk gathered in front of the haunted house, their faces a mix of fear and determination. The children were safely tucked away in their homes, oblivious to the battle that was about to take place. Lily stood by Molly's side, her hand gripping Molly's in a silent show of support. The banished arrived not long after, their shadowy figures appearing out of the darkness, their snarling faces a chilling sight. The confrontation was immediate, the tension palpable. The air seemed to crackle with electricity, the stillness of the night broken by the growls of the banished and the determined shouts of the townsfolk. The battle was unlike anything Dedham had ever witnessed. The streets became a whirlwind of chaos, the clashes between the banished and the townsfolk echoing through the night. Molly was in the thick of it, her powers glowing bright against the darkness, her strikes fast and lethal. The spectral sisters floated above the chaos, their ethereal forms casting a protective barrier around the town. They guided the townsfolk, their whispered advice directing their attacks, their spectral light healing the wounded. Their presence was a constant source of strength, their powers protecting Dedham from the full brunt of the banished's attacks. Despite the chaos, there were moments of extraordinary bravery. A young blacksmith defended his corner with his makeshift weapons. A mother, despite her fear, stood her ground, her love for her family stronger than her terror. A grandfather, frail but determined, aided the wounded, his old tales of the Sisters of the Fang giving hope to the scared and the hurt. And in the center of it all was Molly, her powers shining bright, her courage unyielding. The night of reckoning was a test of Dedham's strength, a battle for their town and their lives. It was a night of fear and bravery, of despair and hope, of loss and triumph. And through it all, the town of Dedham stood strong. They faced the banished with all their might, their unity and courage shining bright in the darkness. As the night wore on, the battle raged. But Dedham was not backing down. This was their night of reckoning, their test of strength, and they were ready to face it till the end. The night of reckoning continued, the battles against the banished raging on with an intensity that shook the very core of Dedham. The town, once peaceful and quiet, was now a battlefield where each street echoed with cries of valor, every corner a testament to bravery. Amid the chaos, the townsfolk stood united, their differences forgotten in the face of the shared threat. The unity they had built over the weeks had transformed into an unbreakable bond, their common goal lending them a strength they never knew they had. Their unity manifested in various forms. A group of townsmen stood their ground at the town square, their collective strength creating a formidable barrier against the banished. Another group patrolled the streets, their coordinated efforts effectively driving away the invaders. Every individual, in their own way, contributed to the collective fight, their actions underlining the power of unity. In the midst of this, Molly and the Spectral Sisters were at the forefront, leading and guiding the townsfolk. Their powers intertwined, their actions were synchronized, creating a force of such magnitude that it repelled the banished at every turn. Despite the odds, they stood strong, their unity amplifying their strength. Even in the face of grave danger, the townsfolk displayed incredible acts of heroism. A mother, despite her fear, fought bravely to protect her children. A grandfather, his body frail but spirit unyielding, supported the wounded. A group of teenagers, their bravery outshining their age, became an unexpected force against the banished. The shared danger had stripped away their individual fears and insecurities, revealing a collective strength that was far more powerful. Their unity became their weapon, their shared bravery their shield. Lily, too, played her part. Even in the face of fear, she held her ground, her courage and inspiration to those around her. She was a beacon of hope, her strength a testament to the spirit of Dedham. As the battle raged on, Dedham showcased the power of unity. The banished, despite their strength, were held at bay, unable to break through the unyielding line of unity. The townsfolk fought with everything they had, their collective strength shaking the very core of the banished. Through the chaos and the fear, Dedham stood united, their strength in unity a beacon of hope. They fought not as individuals, but as one, their combined might a testament to their shared resolve. The power of unity was their weapon, their shared hope their shield. It was a battle they were determined to win, a threat they were determined to overcome. And as the sun began to peek over the horizon, it illuminated a town that was united, a town that was strong, a town that was ready to face any threat that came its way. As the first rays of dawn washed over the battlefield, a new resolve swept over Dedham. The night had been long, filled with fear and chaos, but as they looked at the retreating figures of the banished, a glimmer of hope sparked in their hearts. They were not defeated, not yet. This was their town, their home, and they would not let it fall. The weary townsfolk, energized by this new determination, prepared for the final push. The Spectral Sisters rallied the fighters, their ethereal forms glowing in the morning light. Molly, despite her exhaustion, stood strong. She was the symbol of their resilience, their unyielding spirit. The final push was upon them, and they were ready. Throughout the town, people drew upon their last reserves of energy. The battle had been brutal, but they would not falter, not when they were so close. The blacksmith fired up his forge, creating weapons with a newfound fervor. The healer, her hands trembling with fatigue, continued to tend to the injured. The children, wide-eyed and scared, provided water and food, their small acts of bravery touching the hearts of everyone. As they readied themselves, the banished launched their final assault. The air crackled with an eerie energy, a palpable sense of desperation seeping from the attackers. But Dedham stood tall. They met the banished head-on, their spirits undeterred. The streets of Dedham echoed with the sounds of the final battle. The air was thick with tension, the clash of weapons, and the cries of determination. Every corner was a scene of conflict, every house a stronghold. The town was a fortress, and the townsfolk its resilient defenders. Molly and the Spectral Sisters led the charge, their powers creating a force field that held the banished at bay. Their unity, their determination, created a wall that the banished struggled to penetrate. It was a sight to behold, a testament to the strength of Dedham. The final push was more than just a battle. It was a statement of resilience. The people of Dedham, despite their fears and apprehensions, were standing up to the banished. They were proving that unity was their strength, their weapon against the supernatural. And as the sun climbed higher, the tide began to turn. The banished, unable to withstand the combined strength of the townsfolk, started to retreat. The unified force of Dedham was overpowering them. their relentless spirit too much for the invaders. Through sheer determination, unity, and the unyielding spirit of its people, Dedham was pushing back, fighting for their home. The final push was working, and with the sun shining down on them, Dedham was holding its ground. The dawn was not just bringing a new day, but it was bringing hope, illuminating the faces of the townsfolk who were inching closer to victory. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its warm golden glow over the battered town, it marked the end of the night of reckoning. The banished, their menacing figures now mere shadows, retreated into the morning mist. The new dawn brought with it not just the promise of a fresh day, but a deep sense of foreboding, an unseen twist that was about to unfold. Before fully retreating, the leader of the banished, his face obscured by a shroud of darkness, pointed a bony finger towards Molly. A chilling incantation filled the air and a dark cloud of energy emerged, swirling around her before absorbing into her being. Molly's eyes widened as an overwhelming surge of energy coursed through her. As quickly as it had appeared, the cloud was gone. The banished retreated, leaving behind an eerie silence. An indescribable tranquility came with the new dawn. The townsfolk, standing tall amid the remnants of the battle, shared tearful smiles and proud glances. They had stood together, fought together, and now they had won together. Molly, however, felt a strange dissonance. She was standing in the quiet streets, the same streets she had seen ravaged and then victoriously reclaimed, yet everything around her seemed alien, distorted, and then it hit her. A wave of vertigo, a blinding light, and the world around her began to spin. The last thing she saw was the sun, higher now, marking the beginning of the new dawn. When the light faded and Molly opened her eyes, she was standing in the town square. But it wasn't the Dedham she knew. It was Dedham of the past. She looked around, her heart pounding as she saw the townsfolk, bustling about their everyday lives, oblivious to the horrors of the future. And in the distance, she could see the spectral sisters, alive and human, unaware of the tragic fate that awaited them. The realization hit Molly like a lightning bolt. The banished hadn't retreated in defeat. They had cast a spell on her, sending her back in time, back to the events that led to their banishment and the burning of the sisters. She was alone, trapped in a time that was not her own, with a mission she didn't fully understand. How could she stop the tragedy that was to come? How could she change the course of history? And even if she could, what would that mean for her present, her Dedham, and the people who had come to trust and depend on her? As the reality of her situation sank in, Molly felt a rush of emotions: fear, confusion, determination. The sun was rising. The same sun that had promised a new dawn was now heralding the beginning of a daunting task. A task that held the fate of the spectral sisters and the future of Dedham in the balance. As the sun set on the first day of the new dawn, Molly stood, not in the Dedham she knew and loved, but in a town from the past. A town that was oblivious of the calamity that awaited them. A town that had unknowingly put their trust in a girl from the future. It was the dawn of a new era, but an era filled with uncertainty and the immense weight of responsibility. The new dawn was not just a new day. It was a daunting challenge, a race against time, a mission to change the past to save the future. And as the sun rose higher, marking the beginning of her daunting task, Molly knew that the real battle was just beginning. Hey everyone, welcome to our channel. We're so excited to have you here and share our content with you. If you're new here, make sure to click that subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we can't wait to see you in the next video.